Welcome to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Josh, and we're your farm management hosts. Let's get started.
Josh, we're getting into almost summertime. That means we got to be making plans for some sort of summer getaway vacation. You got anything in the works?
Bruce, with this weather warming up, I'm finding myself outside way more often. I don't think I'm going to go on a big vacation this year. I'm just right across the river from West Virginia. So I think some whitewater rafting's in my future coming up here in the summer. I know last time when I went whitewater rafting in West Virginia, I ended up crying. So, thankfully I was only first grade. It just started thunderstorming, Bruce, and lightning. And as a kid, I hated storms. And with all the lightning and water, I was terrified. So hopefully this time around, I'm not going to cry. No promises. What about you, Bruce?
No promises on the crying. That's okay. Feel free to cry if you have to, if the moment hits you, maybe just because nature is so beautiful that you'll be just taken in by it. So my family, we're planning on heading up to Canada, go to the Niagara and kind of over that way, just experience some outdoor parts of Canada and just really enjoy. We all got our passports this past winter, so we're all set and ready to go for some international, shenanigans of some sort. So it'll be fun. All my kids are adults, and so we travel as adult family and usually have a great time. But Josh, our guest today, when our topic today is agritourism, and we have two of the best that we know on agritourism. We have Kate Hornyak and we also have Rob Leeds with us. These folks are colleagues of ours with OSU Extension, but they have some personal experience in this agritourism area that we want to talk about. So Kate, Rob, welcome. And let's have you introduce yourself just a little bit. Let's start ladies first. Kate.
Thank you, Bruce and Josh, for having us today. My name is Kate Hornyak, and I am a program coordinator in the Delaware County office, as well as I am in an interim position in the Mahoning County office. So as you can tell, I really like to drive and I'm always on the road. So I frequently listen to podcasts, and I have listened to your guys' podcast, and I always find it super informational. My family has pick your own peach operation and an agritourism operation, as well as grain services, so corn and soybeans here in Geauga County. I look forward to talking about agritourism because that's pretty much what I like to do on the farm. So
yeah, welcome, Kate. And I think you guys were planting peaches not too long ago, planting peach trees, if I saw correctly. So our other guest today, Rob Leeds. Rob, why don't you introduce yourself for our audience?
Well, I would thank you and Josh, Bruce, but I'm going to see how this goes first. Case was awful nice to you, so I know how you two are. So I'm just going to hold that just for a second. But anyway, yes, I'm Rob Leeds. As a lot of your listeners guess, been colleagues with Bruce for a long time and worked in agritourism ever since I got in Delaware County, as you would probably guess. Delaware being just north of Columbus. When I first came back in 91, we had the Ohio Direct Marketing Association right here in Delaware County, and that's kind of how I got started professionally with it. I've worked at the international level with the NAFMA, the North American Farmers Direct Marketing Association, and then in our private time, we have a Leeds Farm, which is an agritourism operation we started back in 94, where we do some fall activities and we do some weddings and events, that type of thing. So we've been through the good, bad, and the ugly.
Before we get too deep into this podcast, I want to kind of define agritourism. When I look at that, I see two different words. What's a good definition for agritourism?
I would say the best definition for agritourism, Rob might tend to disagree because he's been in the industry a little bit longer than I have been, but I would say it generally is the approach of farms trying to make a profit and offer the tourism educational aspect of farming and really inviting those individuals out to your farm to engage in an activity, whether it's pick your own peaches or pick your own pumpkins, a fall festival, anything along that nature.
Yeah, I would agree with Kate. That's kind of the definition. It's any operation that engages agriculture and a tourism aspect of it. I wouldn't limit it to the farm. I think farmers markets was our first agritourism operations because, a lot of those marketers, they're characters and they're all farmers and they're growing their own stuff coming in. Our county fairs coming up, a lot of that offer a great agritourism experience and they all fit into that in some way. So I think of a fairly broad definition of it.
So, Rob, it sounds like maybe that agritourism may not just only happen in the fall season of the year when you're talking about other seasonal markets. What are some other examples of how agritourism might happen throughout the calendar year.
Yeah. Well, right now, Bruce, we've already talked a little bit about it. We're starting to move into that spring season. The thing that's really taken off lately are the flower events. Tulips are huge this year, and a lot of those, according to where you're at in the country, they're starting to become very popular. We just got through with Easter a couple weeks ago, and we had adult Easter egg hunts, and we had kid Easter egg hunts. We had some things related to Easter coming off on the farm. As we move into summer, we'll see the pick your own operations kicking in, the farmers markets. They'll become very popular, and then we'll move into the fall season. Then we see our traditional stuff, and then we move into winter, Christmas season. And then when it really gets lean in the agritourism industry, really is when we hit it that January, February. A lot of people take some time off, but there's things you can find all the way through. And once again, finding that niche. And Bruce, it really matters where you're at in the country too, because if you're a little bit farther south, a lot of those November, December, Christmas, Thanksgiving opportunities are a lot more attractive when you're talking highs still in the 40s and 50s versus around here where we could have snow and rain. So weather plays a huge issue in that. But there's stuff to do all the way around through there, and a lot of our members are seeking those out.
I would tend to agree with Rob. As around here, we're in Ohio, we're very weather oriented. So we might not be able to offer all of those seasons, but as somebody who's in the industry, I think it's important to find your niche. And even though you might want to do all the topics that Rob talked about, just finding what you're good at and what really interests you in the industry and stick with it and try to make that the best you can. I think that's important.
I'd rather have a snow walk than I would walking in July or August in the southern states of the United States where it's hot and sweaty. So
Yeah.
I'd rather have a nice snow walk.
Well, Bruce, too, as soon as you go a little bit far south, those sleigh rides are hard to do during Christmas when there isn't no snow. So,
That's right.
well, even Ohio, we got mud, so I don't know what you're doing there. But, what makes you kind of envious of those markets that are maybe a little bit north of us that have a little bit of snow. That ambiance helps a lot when you're selling Christmas trees. But then on the other hand, you don't want it too cold. So a lot of it, when you look at winter is agritourism popular and when is it? It comes back to weather. Summer it's really hot. Spring you got to fight the rains, some snow. So, and especially when we work with markets that are maybe in different climates. Over in the UK we've been working with some markets that talk about the fall, but their fall is really wet. So very different atmosphere when you move around. So Kate hit it right on the head. Pick your niche. Pick what works for you.
So we've kind of already covered it just a little bit, but talking about agritourism as a business, businesses need that business plan, whether that's wherever they're located, making sure that the weather's right. What are 3 to 4 big bucket items in agritourism business plans?
I would say one of the biggest business plan that we kind of like to focus on would be the operations. Your operation is only as good as your staff and what your customers think of your business. So I think including a plan for your staff and your daily operations, your customer management flow, and your safety measures is one of the biggest aspects of your agritourism operation. But from there on, offering that unique experience that people can only get from going to your operation or your farm. And again, hitting those marketing points that maybe some other operations aren't doing, where you can really set yourself out there. Do you have anything to add on that, Rob?
Yeah, I think the one thing that people, when they put their business plan together, I like to see that they have a team around them that can support them. As we talked a little bit on and off, agritourism is a fledgling business. A lot of things aren't cut and dry. A lot of things change. So you need to have your local zoning around you. You need to have your family all on board. You need to have a lot of those things into place, and those all come together when you're putting together that business plan. You want to have an attorney, you want to have insurance. A lot of this stuff is all new to us, and we want to make sure that we get off to a good start. Kate's right, that all comes under that operational strategy. So I like to see that, a lot of that legwork done up front, just so people have at least explored some of the pluses and minuses. And then the other thing I would add to, have some realistic budgeting projections. too often that we're overly optimistic or we don't really do our homework what it's going to cost to put that stuff out there. And when you hire staff, what is it really going to cost you to bring in? How much per hour are you going to charge? A lot of those financial projections are going to need to be made, especially if you're going to a lender and offering for some money. And then the other thing too is make sure you get a lender on your team again that understands what you're trying to do. Several years ago, we put in a combine slide and I went out and bought a running John Deere combine, and all you case guys will say, yes, that's the only good thing for a John Deere combine is tearing it apart. And tore apart the inside and put a slide down the middle. But once again, when I went to Farm Credit, I'd worked with some lenders that understood what we were trying to do. So they didn't say, you want to spend what on it and do what with a combine? So, having those people in place are key.
And Rob, that probably leads into maybe the discussion of maybe your observations have been what has been some of the quickest ways that agri-tour business has failed. You might have seen some failures over your years.
Well, I've had plenty of failures myself, bud. So
probably in little aspects of the business,
yeah.
But when the whole thing gets shut down, what's really some of the lead reasons why things kind of fall apart?
Well, the big thing I see, and I'll hit one I have, and I'll let Kate cover some other ones, but because there isn't just one. But the biggest thing that I see is this idea of being a new business. You're coming in, making sure that you reach out to your zoning inspector. Am I doing what you're doing okay? My fire marshal, even though there's some exemptions, am I doing what I need to do? They can still come out. Those kind of things right there can shut you down quicker than anything, those legal things. Make sure you know those up front. It goes a lot to, as farmers, sometimes we like to, and as extension educators, we like to beg for forgiveness. This is not a time to do that. Go out and ask the hard questions. Am I allowed to do this? What can I do? What can I not do? Reach out to your neighbors. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Are there any concerns that you may have? That bank of goodwill being built up before you even start is probably one of the best uses of your time. And that's where I see them failing, Bruce, is once you have a zoning inspector or something that says, no, you can't do it, then it becomes an issue.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on a little bit of the customer service aspect because I think that's a big business oriented issue that we see with agritourism operations, just not caring enough to the visitors or not training your staff correctly to welcome and engage with visitors. You really want to offset your business if you want to find your niche market and make sure that people have you known for your customer service. So I'm going to throw in a little quote here that we like to teach with, and it's from Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So that's a great thing, that just to think about what your whole operation is about. It's ran off of your customers and your staff. So making sure that those are top of the line and the best that they can be is pretty important.
One of the biggest issues that I see is people forget the agri part of the agritourism. And, we have a lot of people that buy a piece and they want to start doing weddings or events or whatever, to make sure that they have that agriculture portion still involved in that operation. That's big, but that goes back to, once again, talking to your zoning people, what you can and can't do with that. We see that quite a bit.
Rob, I want you to put your extension hat back on. Say I was a farmer who wants to start an agritourism location, but I only have a small amount of acres. Is there an option for me to increase my farm revenue by offering agritourism on my small farm?
Oh, sure. That's easy for you to say, Josh. But yeah, I think smaller acreages actually could benefit quite a bit from it. The idea is what you want to do and what you can do with agritourism is you want to grow a high value crop, right? So corn and soybeans, traditional crop, row crops that we grow here, are not near as profitable per square foot or per acre as when you move up the lane and you grow, pick your own fruits. Vegetables are a little bit lower, but pick your own fruits. So you're getting a higher dollar return for your investment. And then when you move up to a service economy, which is the next step in agritourism, then you can afford to charge more within that. So you're making more per acre as you go up. So the idea is you want to maximize your returns per your acre, no matter if you got a big farm or a little farm. But so small operations really have an opportunity to make that happen. Once again, you need to offer something that will set you apart from your neighbor, and then you can set your price the way you need it so you can bring in some extra income. And this is where I struggle a little bit, Josh, is this idea of I have small acres. You can put up a greenhouse and you can increase your profitability. You don't have to invite people on. Maybe that's your niche. But when you invite people on for pick your own vegetables or whatever, then you're offering a service as they come on. So the more you move up that ladder, the better you can utilize your acres. That is a good opportunity to increase that. But once again, you got to realize that there's extra expenses that come along with it.
Kate, help me work through this situation where I don't really have a large human population really close to my farm. Is there an opportunity there to create my farm as like a destination where people will come out, drive a while for whatever kind of experience that I can put together? Do I have to have that human population close to the farm?
That's a great question. So I would say anytime that you're right outside of big cities, or we like to call them the 3 Cs. So Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, anytime you're in 45-mile radius, I'd say, to those big cities, you're still going to get those people out to your farm if you are offering that niche market, high quality demand and product that you might be trying to sell or offer an experience per se. But people are really willing to drive farther than you might think to experience that farm scenery setting. So
Rob, going back to like my previous question, what if someone came up to you and they're trying to find more revenue outlets for their farm, but they said, people often annoy me and I don't like being around people. Is agritourism for them? Is it for their farm, or is there something else they can do?
Josh, I'm going to give you the short answer first. No, agritourism is not for you. Why would you want to put yourself in that position? Life is too short. I will give you that answer. And there are some ways that you can do agritourism, or you can be involved in agritourism that you're not, directly customer facing. My philosophy is agritourism revolves around people. People are your customers, as Kate has talked about, knowing your customers, knowing your niche. But the other part of that is the people that support you and around you. Most of our farms are small in when they start out, the most of your labor force is family. And Josh, if you don't like customers, when you're small, you're not going to be able to hire someone to be that customer facing person, right? And your spouse may be the one doing it. When they come home and they're upset about customers, you got to be able to sympathize with them and support them. So that's really hard when you don't like customers anyway. So my advice would be, yes, you can do it, but you have to really examine whether the stress on your operation is worth that. And do you want to do something different? Once again, we've talked about agritourism doesn't have to be on the farm. I would suggest to you, yes, Josh, go out there, grow it, and then have your kids or, hired hand or spouse go ahead and take it into a farmer's market, which is also agritourism, and let them be the face of your farm. That may have been an opportunity. But when you invite people out to your operation, it makes it tough. In any farming operation, and everybody knows this, farming is not a 9 to 5 job. It's 24/7. You live it. You have to love it to be able to be successful. And I would say the same thing with agritourism. If you're going to invite them out, remember, it's not a 9 to 5 job. You're not going to walk in at 5 o'clock and shut it off. It's going to be something you're going to live. And you got to say, do I love it or am I going to leave it? So you decide which one you want to do. So that's my answer with that I give most people is it's going to be a lot of work if you don't love it.
And even if direct interaction might frustrate you, you could consider some approaches such as management from behind the scenes, some farm management. We all need somebody who runs the paperwork and the books, product development, and these type of tasks might not require constant guest interactions, as well as in farm markets, which Rob has talked about as part of agritourism, they are doing things more technology driven. So they're actually producing self-checkouts where nobody is even needed to check out at the counter. And it is similar to a Walmart or bigger box store business where you can just check out yourself at the farm market. Like my brother, he doesn't want to do anything with the people. So we stick him in the tractor most times.
But when a lot of the farms that we work with, there is a division of skills and workload. And a lot of it is, and I don't want to be sexist here, is the male does the growing and the female of the operation does the marketing. Don't know why. That's just the way it's evolved. And if you have enough people, that will work well. But starting out, sometimes you just don't have that liberty to have that division of labor.
So what do you both like about agritourism? As you described, Rob, it's 24/7, several months out of the year, week on and week after. So you both have to have a personal passion for this. And Kate, would you describe why are you involved in agritourism?
My why is I really enjoy people. I enjoy kids. I enjoy seeing the farm that I grew up on, making other kids and families come together and more passionate about agriculture. Even though it is a lot of work, at the end of the day, you're exhausted and you just want the day to be over. I think it makes it totally worth it to see the pictures that people post online or the memories that people are sharing and created at your farm.
And Rob, you're like an Energizer bunny. You never get tired at the end of the day. What is your why to agritourism, Rob?
Well, because my wife tells me I'm going to love agritourism. I say, you betcha, buddy. No, I'm going to go a little different direction. Kate's right. I agree with everything she just said here. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about staff development. Probably the best thing or the thing I'm most proud of at our operation. Every year we'll employ close to 100 employees. And a lot of those kids, it's their first job in high school, maybe first job out of high school, is the idea of working with those kids and watching them blossom and become adults and move on to bigger, better jobs, being that first one. We try to teach them to work with the people, to work with each other, to develop a real work ethic. And I promise them, I said, if you help us reach our goals, I will help you reach your personal and professional goals. We have 2 on staff now that have been with us since they've been 16, and one's just finishing up pharmacy school. So that's good. That extra education gives me 2 or 3 more years with them. So, but just that enjoyment, it's like having 100 kids each year, Bruce. I don't know, you don't want more kids, but the idea is that you can watch them grow and become better. And probably just like Kate said, with the memories being posted from your customers, when you go to an operation and a kid tells you, my first job was at Leeds Farm, something like that makes you feel really good about giving back to the community and hoping giving back to those kids' lives.
So we've talked a lot about the positives of agritourism and the opportunities it can have on different operations. But what are some risks and challenges that face agritourism?
I would say one of the biggest risks that we face in agritourism is the liability and safety concerns. Peggy Hall, our OSU extension lawyer, does a lot of legal concepts with agritourism industry and going to look out at zoning and whatnot. But the liability issues that you face when you have families coming onto your farm, we really struggle as business owners to make sure that, we're fully covered, and we work with our insurance, local fire department, and our health regulations and things like that.
Josh, we've touched a little bit on it, just the idea of how you can fail really quickly. And Kate's right, especially as farmers. When we first start out, we're not used to working with a lot of those different entities. We don't do a lot with zoning. We don't do a lot with the health department. So as you move into a different area, working with those new players is a challenge. If they're accessible to you in a small community, you can navigate that fairly easily. But if you're right outside a municipality and it's big and it's growing, it makes it a little more difficult. And the other thing I would say is because it is a fledgling industry, sometimes the rules change. You got to stay in contact. You ask us about how you can fail quickly. If you ask me how you can succeed, the idea is to reach out and become a member of several of our direct marketing groups. Get on Facebook and make sure that you're up to date on what's going on. This idea of surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are going through the same trials and tribulations you are is going to be your easiest way to make sure you're ahead of the curve and set yourself up for success. Doesn't guarantee it, but boy, sure it helps.
In both of your roles as extension professionals, you both have had the opportunity to teach and help those that are entering the business or already in the business of agritourism to develop their own operation. What kind of topics have you really enjoyed teaching and felt that you've had the greatest impact on those businesses in agritourism? Rob, let's start with you.
Well, there's two of them that I guess I'm most proud of, and I think we have a big impact. First off is Eric Barrett and I developed an emergency management program, and it basically leads farms through developing a plan in case they have an emergency on the farm. Not only does it protect the guests and keeps them safe and your staff safe, it also looks at safeguarding the profit potential or the issues that may arise from that because of a natural disaster or, some kind of man-made disaster. So that's been really huge, and we've been lucky enough to go all over the nation and talk about that. The other thing I think is really key, and I kind of alluded to that with our own operation, is I am really proud of our employee training. We spend a lot of time with them. Like I said, we got close to 100 kids or a little over sometimes that work on the farm, and to really offer them the opportunity to not only learn what is right to do on an agritourism farm, but to expand that and say, when you get out in the real world, get out of high school, there's other opportunities too. And we've developed a customer service training manual through Extension that I'm very proud of that we've worked. And as you would guess, Bruce, I went down to the customer service down there at Disney Institute, and we've instituted a lot of their same kind of protocols into our operation and to, some of the things we talk about in Extension.
How about you, Kate?
Well, I don't have as many years as Rob does in Ohio State Extension, but
She's
nobody
killing
does.
me here. I
Nobody
tell you,
does.
she's killing me. I tell you, that old man Rob over there. No, we're lucky to have people like Kate that wants to come in with us, Bruce. You know that.
you can cut that out. It's okay. But I would say my biggest thing that I would be the most proud of is the branding aspect. Hannah Scott and I presented at OPGMA this year for branding and how to actually recognize that your farm brand is what you are trying to display, and it really resonates with you, yourself, and your family. When I talk about brand, I mean like what your farm is known for, whether that's the colors or the message that you're trying to portray. That's probably the thing that I'm most proud of.
Well, thank you, Rob and Kate, for joining us on the podcast today. As a reminder, the Agritourism Conference is on July 23rd. The Ohio Agritourism Conference and OPGMA Summer Tour are joining forces at Hillcrest Orchard of Walnut Creek. For more information, go to go.osu.edu/agritourism. Rob, Kate, is there anything else you'd like to share before we end today's podcast?
It's been fun.
And now, Josh, I will thank you for having us. Yes, it's been great.
Thanks for listening today.
For more information about farm management tips, be sure to check out the farm office at farmoffice.osu.edu.